Alright guys, welcome back to VALORANT News, where the VCT Americas rounding down. Rumours are emerging that Sentinels are looking to make some potential role changes to try and change around their fortunes from now to the end of the season. Some simulations say they have a roughly 7% chance to make it to playoffs, but if they win both their series, it's certainly possible if other matches go their way. Very much enjoyed to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. Just a quick update for you guys, of course, on the SicK situation, you guys. I'm sure I've been following this over the last couple of days. We mentioned it yesterday, and if you guys don't know the full story, I did mention it yesterday, and of course SicK was initially arrested a couple of months ago for trespassing on I believe at a Ferrari dealership, and just yesterday he tweeted at at Scuderia Ferrari, I need 4 cars, sir, can you help? Now, first of all, Scuderia Ferrari is the Formula 1 team. It's not even the Ferrari dealership necessarily. And maybe he went back to the dealership as he did before because, according to George Geddes and other publications have now reported this, such as Decerto, that he's been arrested again for criminal trespassing, the same charge as before. So I think initially that was at like a Ferrari dealership. He went there and then he was arrested. So I don't know if that's what's happened again exactly. It might well be. So yeah, obviously as George says, you may have seen how he acted differently on stream. So I don't know what the future is here again, because we thought over the last couple of months that maybe the situation was getting resolved and he was back to the SicK that we previously knew, but obviously hasn't been the case for the last couple of days. And as George Geddes says, Sentinels has worked with his family members to try and support him. ShahZaM has tried his best to get through to him, even addressing the situation publicly, but that hasn't really got anywhere, unfortunately. And so I guess he's back in the situation that he was previously in. So yeah, just a quick update for you guys. Unfortunate turn of events, but as a community, of course, we're hoping that all the situation works out for the best. Let's dive into the VCT Pacific here. So again, DFA Montero comes out with these beautiful graphics looking at what is the likely order going into the playoffs. So of course, after RRQ had a pretty good result, they're now in a good position to qualify. They've got a roughly 50% chance to make it. Team Secret slightly lower. Talent, Global Esports, everyone above them will probably get the job done. That lost Global Esports out to RRQ probably signals the end for them, but they still do have some chance if things go their way and they win their series. This I thought was another interesting way to look at it. If the team wins their remaining games, or let's say loses their remaining games, what are their chances of qualifying? For example, Paper X, if they were to lose to both Gen.G and RRQ, they will still qualify with a 99.74% likelihood unless things go absolutely crazy. So if RRQ win both their games, they qualify guaranteed. So that's the quite nice thing for these teams, is that for at least Team Secret and RRQ, more than likely it's completely in their hands. If they win their respective series, Global Esports as well, if they beat Detonation and they beat Team Secret, they're still got a 62.5% chance of making it. So yeah, obviously for some of these teams it's in their hands, some of these teams it's not, and we'll see in a second with Sentinels how it's a pretty similar story to this actually that Global Esports presently find themselves in. Also though, a big series last night in the VCT Americas, NRG versus Furia, a massive game actually here for NRG and Furia to try and win, and I think we finally got to see something of the NRG that we expected. They started out this stage very poor, not very poor, they were still, NRG to a certain extent, but they weren't where you'd expect them to be, a team that should be competing with Loud, to be honest, right? And Loud are 7-0, and they still have to play Loud, which is going to be exciting to see, because it does seem like Finesse is stepping up the level on some of his calling. It was very impressive, I thought, what NRG were able to do yesterday. They make a 9-3 comeback here in the second side on Binds, obviously a map where they're very proficient. Eventually if Furia go down here, it goes game 3 as well, and NRG pretty emphatic game 3 in the end. The first 2 maps were super competitive, 13-11 either way, and Furia played well as well. You gotta give Furia a lot of credit here. I think they were very impressive, but NRG raced into a good lead here on Pearl. For some reason Pearl, like, everyone loves playing Pearl in the Americas. It's not a map that's played particularly often at all, to be honest, in the European region, and I know that from a fan viewership perspective, Pearl is probably the worst map to watch in the game. Well, because everyone uses Harbor and Viper, right? So it's just visually an absolute mess. Like when you've got waves coming in, you've got walls coming up, and Vipers there as well. Like it's a complete mess to watch, to be honest. And, I think, honestly, this current meta is fine on most maps, but on Pearl, it's just painful to see. And apparently America's teams just love playing Pearl. So, yeah, I hope it's gone at some point. I don't like this map at all. But anyway, this is a quick clip from the moment.
That's for C? Oh!
Pushes never fail.
Oh my god! Bro, that is dirty. That is dirty. A third kill as well?
As FNS says, 2-1 versus Furia. GG well played, need to be better. So they still have room for improvement for sure, NRG, but they're getting better. And this was an impressive series victory for them, 4-3 now. And that find themselves tied with Furia. And as Chet says, coming for you at Loud. So we know that OpTic versus Loud, phenomenal rivalry. NRG is effectively old OpTic with a couple of changes to the roster. So Loud is, I believe, their next game they play in a few days' time. So that gets very interesting indeed. So 2-1 versus Furia, and NRG advance, I think maybe slightly above Furia now in the rankings, because head-to-head is important here. And despite an unreal performance from their Jet, it wasn't quite enough. Crashy, Som individually. Som's been so good for this team, man. Victor was great as well. So I think, honestly, like, Crashy's might be one of the more underrated players in the game right now. He's been very good. An Artist still not doing anything crazy. 14-11 though in First Bloods. Like, that will generally get the job done there for the Jet player over map 2 and map 3 of the series. And NRG get over the line 13-6 on Pearl, which was an impressive result, no doubt about it. So that now leaves us with this situation here. This is the VCT Americas playoffs from, as I mentioned, DFA Montero is back at it again. So these are the chances based on the relative ELO ratings of the team. So Loud and Cloud9, of course, are 100% confirmed. NRG are now 93% likelier to qualify for, for the top 6. Leviathan at 88%, Fury at 89%, EG at 67%, 100 Thieves at 50%. So then it leaves Crew are completely out of there, of course. Sentinels, 7% chance. Their most likely finishing position is 8th. The most likely finishing position for MIBO is 9th at a 60% chance of that happening. But then, yeah, 100 Thieves have the best chance of doing so. However, Sentinels still have the ball in their court 50% of the time, that we'll see here in a second, because if we look at it from this perspective, team wins both remaining games, what happens? We find that the top 6 teams, if Leviathan win both their games, if NRG win both their games, if EG win both their games, they're 100% in and there's nothing Sentinels can do. Sentinels absolutely need EG to lose both of their games, I believe, and they need 100 Thieves to lose as well to make sure that Sentinels get the appropriate tiebreaker. So Sentinels need to win both their matches. They need to beat Crew, which they should do, but it would be a very Sentinels thing to somehow lose to Crew, and they need to beat Furia. And if they can do that, which, they should be favourites in at least one of those series against Furia. They're probably not favourites, to be honest, but they could still win it. Even if they win both those series, they will have only a 57% chance to qualify because they need other results to go their way, which is where Sentinels find themselves in a real predicament. Also interesting, though, that Furia, if they lose to both 100 Thieves and Sentinels, their chances of qualifying actually go down drastically. NRG can lose both their series and still qualify 4 out of 5 times. Similar story with Leviathan. But Furia, if they lose to 100T and Sen, which they could do, then, they're actually unlikely to make it, which is very interesting to see how that goes. Now, for Sentinels to make it, they will need to improve. To beat Furia, it's going to be a hard task. To beat Crew, they should do, but Crew, still should be better than they are. I don't understand why they're so bad, to be honest. Their team is actually pretty good on paper, but they just haven't put anything together. So maybe they're going to finally come good against Sentinels. I know that TenZ was giving it all, or Tarek was giving his thoughts on TenZ and the fact that he was getting scapegoated. I don't think TenZ is magically making a comeback to the team very shortly. I don't think they would try anything like that, but then again, we get this from Sentinels. What's the most Sentinels thing that could happen next? What are we going to do? And they've got to consider some changes, right? Because over the last few series, their average map performance is 13-5. They are legitimately looking like Carmine Corp. It ain't looking good. And they were better. It's funny how Sentinels, the meme around Sentinels for so many years has been, they don't practice enough. But apparently when Sentinels do practice, they get worse. With no practice, they were better than they were with practice. I simply don't understand how that's even possible. But I know some of you guys have pointed this out to me, that over the last couple of days in some matches and some ranked play and Premier, whatever's been played by zyppan and co, that he's been changing around his roles a bit, using Harbor on Pearl, Omen on Lotus, and KO on the Ascent, which is usually what Dephh does on those particular maps. So that doesn't mean that Dephh is being kicked and TenZ is coming in and Sassy's gelling, but it might mean that they are significantly making some role changes within the team. But in fairness, right, if zyppan is indeed taking over the roles of Dephh, then, Deph's not exactly going to go onto the duelist, is he? So, what are they going to do there? It's a bit of an interesting one. We even saw this last night come out from zyppan where he played this clip. He was here on the Killjoy, and Pancala's like, why am I on the Killjoy? So lots of discussion between the players on the roles on the team. The idea that zyppan's been practicing on the particular role that Dephh usually plays raises questions whether Deph's going to step in elsewhere, whether someone else is going to try and step up into the duelist role, because zyppan is surely best equipped to do so so unless they have TenZ. So I don't know what they're planning, but you know, they might feel right now that without significant changes, nothing's really going to work out for them, which I can understand if they feel that way, because they need, you know, they're not going to win against Fury if they don't at least change something. And maybe that's not a role change, maybe that's a roster change, but you know, either way, I feel like they've got to give something a go. And as it stands, EG need to lose both games, 100 Thieves need to lose at least one, and then Sentinels need to win all their games, and then they'll go through on a head-to-head. So head-to-head is the big thing here. Sentinels need to get the head-to-head against 100 Thieves at 4 and 5, and if they can do that, they win that head-to-head, and therefore they will advance if EG lose both, which also is what Sentinels need to happen. So yeah, it's tough, but if they win both their series, they at least have a more than 50% chance that it's going to happen. But they need EG to lose to MIBR, I believe, as well, which is far from a guarantee as it stands. And also just to mention here, the first round of voting has been coming through for the Bagger of the week. Of course, the Sentinels players are right up there. Marved and Dephh are. I mean, one of them is going to win it for sure. I would imagine that Marved might well get it this week, but we'll see. Dephh might come out on top, as he usually does. But very much interested to hear your thoughts on all this stuff in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new. Take care, and I'll see you next time.